Hello and welcome to helpyourmath.com. Here we're going to have an introduction to playing cards. Do you need to familiarize yourself for a math or statistics class and you've never played cards before? This is going to be the tutorial for you. Let's get started. Here is a standard deck of cards. A standard deck of cards has 52 cards total, so there's 52 cards. And the cards are broken up by various categorizations. Let's talk about those now. The 52 cards are broken up into 4 suits. So the 4 suits, those are the 4 different shapes you see. There are 2 black suits. Those are the clubs and the spades. So we have our clubs here. This is the club. This is the spade. Those are the black suits. You'll notice that there's the same number of black cards as there are red cards. There are 13 of each type of card, meaning there are 26 black cards and 26 red cards. The red cards are called hearts and diamonds. So there's 13 of each suit. There are 26 of each color. If you are dealt cards, that's called having a hand. So you're dealt a hand of cards. For this video, we're going to just pretend like everything focuses on 5-card hands. So everything we're going to talk about revolves around a 5-card hand. This is an example of a 5-card hand. Depending on what you're doing or what game you're playing, you might want to arrange these 5 cards in 2 different ways. One is you arrange them by suit. So you put all the hearts together, all the spades together, all the clubs together, and all your diamonds together. Or you might arrange them by value. So you might lump all your 2s, your 7s, you just put them in order, but then by value also. So we put our queens together. Okay, let's go into a little more detail about each suit. We're going to focus on the clubs, but just know that whatever I say about clubs is also true for spades, diamonds, and hearts. There are 13 different types of cards in any given suit. There's one ace, that's this guy here with the A. There is the 2 through 10, the number cards, so that would be 2 through 10. And there are 3 face cards. There's the jack with the J, the queen, and the king. These are called face cards because they literally have faces. That's why they're called the face cards. And depending on the information you know or have, the ace is usually either the lowest card or the highest card. And again, that depends. If that's important, then you would need to talk to your instructor about that. When you talk about an individual card, you would say the blank of blank, the type of the suit. So, do you see the 6 of clubs? Here's the 6 of clubs. So when you refer to it, you say the type of card it is of the type of suit it is. Let's talk about types of card combinations next. So we have our 52 cards. You might be asked to calculate various combinations or the probability of various combinations. Here are some of the most common. This is not a comprehensive list. These are just the most common that you might come across. One is called one pair. For one pair, that means that you have 2 cards of the same type, such as 2 3s or 2 jacks. Now, in a 5-card hand, you have to take into account the other 3 cards. So one pair is just 2 of the cards, right? That's just these 2 3s or the 2 jacks or the 2 7s, whatever you might have. There's also 3 other cards to deal with. So when you're talking about counting the number of ways to get one pair, you have to keep in mind that in a 5-card hand, the one pair is 2 cards. Then there's a card that's all by itself. So this is just a single 7. And you have a single 8. And you have a single king or whatever single card you might have. The other cards cannot also form a pair. So you couldn't have a 7 and a 7 along with a 3 and a 3 in a one pair hand. That's a different type of hand. So one pair is really one pair and then 3 other cards of different types, and they all have to be distinct from each other. They also can't match the pair. So you couldn't have a pair of 3s and then this card also be a 3. That's no good, not allowed. Okay, so that's one pair. Another type we might see is 2 pairs. In a 2-pair hand, that means that you have 2 sets of 2 cards of the same type, such as 2 3s and 2 jacks. So you might have 2 3s and 2 jacks, that's 2 pairs. Or you might also have, well not also, or alternatively you could have 2 4s and 2 9s. Any 2-pair combination makes 2 pairs. In a 5-card hand with 2 pairs, again, you have to keep in mind that there's 5 cards 2 pairs only account for 4 of those cards. So you have 1 pair here and 1 pair here, and those pairs can't match, right? I can't have a pair of 3s and a second pair of 3s because that's not 2 pair, that's 4 of the same kind. So we have 2 pairs, and then we have our 1 single lone card that's all by itself. So 2 pairs is really 2 distinct pairs plus 1 other type of card in a 5-card hand. So that's what you want to keep in mind if you're counting the combinations. It's really easy to just focus on what information is given, but you have to take into account the entire hand, and that's what's so important with the combinations and probabilities. Okay, what else do we have? 3 of a kind. 3 of a kind, that's 3 of the same type, such as 3 threes. Now, notice when we're talking about types, that means that we have 3 threes. That doesn't mean that we have 3 spades. If we had the 3 of spades, the 5 of spades, and the 10 of spades, that's not 3 of a kind. Those just happen to be 3 spades. That's something different if they all match. But when we're talking about 3 of a kind, we're talking about of the 13 different types having 3 of one of those. Or we could have 3 nines, for example, right? So we could have 3 nines, 3 threes, 3 kings, 3 jacks. You get the idea. We could go all the way across the deck. In a 5-card hand, what does this mean? This means that you have 3 cards of one kind, and then you have 2 other distinct cards. These cannot be nines, or they can't match whatever the 3 of a kind is, nor can they match each other. They have to be separate, distinct cards. Because again, if they either match the 9, well, only one of them could. If it matches the 9, that's not 3 of a kind, that's 4 of a kind. If the other 2 match, if we had 2 aces here, that's not 3 of a kind, that's a separate type of hand. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. 4 of a kind, that's the 4 of the same type, such as 4 threes, which we see here, 4 threes, or maybe 4 nines. And again, in a 4 of a kind type of hand, we have 4 of one kind, and then we have 1 single card all by itself. You want to keep in mind that there is some other card there, and that could be any card. It doesn't have to be the 5 of hearts, right? It could be the king of clubs, it could be the ace of spades, it could be the 5 of hearts. But we have 4 of one type and then 1 other card that it couldn't possibly match because there's only 4 nines in the deck anyway. Okay, what else do we have? We have a full house. So I mentioned this earlier without giving it a name. A full house is when you have 3 of a kind and a pair, such as 3 eights and 2 sixes. And you'll notice here that if we're talking about a 5-card hand, there are no other cards. This is the 5 cards. So we don't have any one-offs here. Every card is accounted for in a full house. And a full house is any combination of 3 of a kind and a pair. What else do we have? We have a flush. A flush, that's when all the cards are of the same suit, such as you have all 5 cards are spades. And again, if you have a flush, there's no other cards. You can't have 4 spades and a diamond and call that a flush. That's not a flush. That's not anything. That's just a high card. So that's what we would have, a flush. All the cards are the same suit. And it's important that it's the same suit. If you had the queen of clubs and 4 spades, that's not a flush. That's not anything, unfortunately. That's just 5 cards that happen to all be black. They have to be the same suit. Another type of card combination is a straight. A straight is when the cards are consecutive cards, such as 2 through 6. So we might have 2 through 6. It could look something like this. There are a lot of different combinations, right? This is just the one that I happen to choose. And depending on the game that you're playing, so if you're playing a game called Gin or Gin Rummy, you might only need 3 consecutive cards for a straight. You might only need the 2, 3, and 4. That's, one type of game. But generally when we're talking about a straight, it means all of the cards go in order. But there's also a straight flush. And a straight flush is not only are the cards consecutive, but they're also all the same suit, such as the 9 through king of hearts. If you have them in a row and they're the same suit, that's a straight flush. Very difficult hand to achieve, but it is possible, as you can see here. Okay, so just to summarize everything that I talked about, there are 52 cards in a standard deck of cards. There are 4 suits. There are 2 black suits, and the black suits are the clubs and the spades, and there are 2 red suits, hearts and diamonds. These are the different types of card combinations that are possible. I'm going to leave it here in case you need to pause and review this for a second. And again, this was not a comprehensive list. These are just some very common types of cards that we see. You want to keep in mind that it depends on how many cards you're dealt, to be able to come up with the counting or the probability of any type. And honestly, the best way to learn and understand about cards is to get out there and play some cards. I love playing cards. Find a game that you really like, and that'll really help you get a firmer foundation for cards and decks of cards. Thank you for stopping by.